We like to start every week with a proverb. We start them because they're called wisdom literature in the Bible. And we like to go to one every single week because we feel that we're able to get a lot out of each one on how to daily go about living your life, especially in today's, which is about the enticement of evil.
Yeah, Proverbs 1:10. My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. Again, I'll say it's Proverbs 1:10. My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. Right off the bat, when you read this proverb, it's easy to go, all right, enough said, move on, read the next one. But there's some depth to the meaning of this that I really want to unpack here today, because I think we start off looking at this concept of sin. And I think more often than not, people don't really have a firm understanding of what sin actually is. And so I think to really get the concept of this verse, we have to know what sin means. And so here's what it is. Sin is, simply put, it's any thought, word, or action contrary to God's will, holiness, and commands. Again, it's any thought, word, or action contrary to God's will, holiness, and commands. So how do you know what his commands are? Well, read the word. I mean, everything that we do in this podcast always seems to go back to this one main thing of just spend some time reading the word. And so I'm going to give you some real world examples of this, though, because our sinful appetites can become our masters if we're not grounded in biblical truth. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you two examples. The first one is a business opportunity. So from the outside, building a business, maybe you have some partners that you're working with. So we have this desire to build wealth. We have this desire to build a business so we can take care of our families. These are all good things. Matter of fact, a lot of the book of Proverbs is designed around us working. Talks a lot about the lazy person. Mm-hmm. And so from the outside, we're going, okay, we're going to build this business and we're going to accumulate wealth and it's going to be good. And then the day comes where the people you're in business with want to cut corners. Maybe they want to do something illegal because that is going to help the business grow. And so now your argument could be, well, everybody's doing that. This is just the nature of business. This is just how it goes. So we're going to cut these corners or we're going to do this because, probably nobody's going to find out anyways. And so here's the problem. When we look at Romans chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, it tells us this. It says, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there's no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Now, we read a verse like that, and so we go, all right, well, this is our standard. I have to obey the laws, because if I don't obey the laws, what's it say right there? It says that you could bring judgment on yourselves. Mm-hmm. So if I haven't made decisions ahead of time about my moral fabric and the standards that I have for business, then when I'm faced in that moment with a decision, or I might have to make a wrong or right decision, I'm going to be enticed by sin because I'm not strong enough to know what the will of God is. Mm-hmm. One example. I'm going to be a second one, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one because this is a tough one. Taxes. So we're business owners, and so as business owners, we have the ability to write certain things off. And every single month that goes by, every single day that goes by, we have the ability to decide, is this a business expense or this a personal expense? And there's this gray area that comes with that. And here's the argument that a lot of people make, especially when it comes to taxes. Well, our government is deceitful. They're doing bad things with the money that I give them. I don't trust them. And so if they get to do it, then I get to cheat as well. And then we read Romans chapter 13, verses 6 and 7, and said, this is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. The reason this proverb is given is to help protect us, because God knows that when we make decisions to walk in sin, that there are real-world consequences that can come because of that. And so by us having these guidelines ahead of time, it helps prevent us in the long run from being caught up, whether it be with the law or even just like morality. Just we live in this day-to-day, we have these day-to-day consequences that can come upon us because we're living outside of God's will.
I think the easiest reading of it is it's a father speaking to his son and saying and giving fatherly advice.
Yeah.
Hey, if you hang out with wicked people, the judgment will come upon you. Yeah. Meaning, you hang out with wicked people, wicked things are going to happen, and you're going to be wrapped up in that. You might get involved in it. It might ruin your life. I have a very personal thought of it, which is, first off, misery loves company.
Yeah.
And I have a great friend, Daryl, and we were in the band together, and we'd go on tour together and stuff. And man, Daryl and I were like very similar guys, and he's a fun dude. And he would have a girlfriend for a while, and I wouldn't have a girlfriend, so then I didn't want him to have a girlfriend either, because I wanted to go party and like meet chicks and hang out and drink. And I was a bad influence on my friend Daryl. I realized that, this much later. But I would constantly try to draw him out. And why would I do that? I think it's not just misery loves company, because I wasn't always miserable. But when you are getting into some stuff that is sinful behavior, you want someone else to co-sign for you.
Yeah.
You want a co-signer. And because then it kind of covers, you feel like in some way, like, it's not just me. I'm not the only one that's drinking this much. I'm not the only one doing these drugs. I'm not the only one sleeping around or any of that stuff. And it kind of somehow makes it okay in this, this psychological thing in your brain. Matthew Henry, the theologian, said it like this: wicked people are zealous in seducing others into the path of the destroyer. Sinners love company in sin, but they have so much more to answer for. And that's his commentary on the whole Bible. And everything about that is exactly true. As I'm doing these wicked things, I wanted to draw other people into it just so that I didn't feel so bad about all the wickedness I was doing. Because there's something about when you have someone else there, you go, oh, all right, we're both doing it. And he's doing it and I'm doing it. And I don't know, it takes some of the heat off your own mentality of it. I don't know what that is. I don't have any greater wisdom or deeper wisdom for why that is, but misery does love company. It's true. And the wicked love company, as Matthew Henry says. And that's something to be careful for as you go about your life. This is good wisdom by a father. And if you look at some of the other things that then, because you said, read on further, because that one doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, if you start reading 11 through 19, you see violence, greed, self-destruction. And these are all parallels to what we're talking about in the bigger episode, which is the outcome of the fall. The fall of Adam and Eve. They take the apple. From there on out, everybody has this sin capability. It's mandatory in your life. Everyone's going to have it. And then we see Jesus come on the scene, which is what we're going to talk about in the larger episode this week.
That whole idea of misery loves company, I think that's such a great concept when it comes to this verse. And the reason why I think it's great, you asked the question, I don't know why we have that. I think the reason why we have that is we have the image of God. We're image of God bearers. So I think inside of us, we all know when we're making poor and wrong decisions. And so when we have somebody that's making a poor, wrong decision with us, it kind of helps us justify our poor and wrong decisions.
Absolutely.
It just makes us feel better about ourselves, right? And so...
Well, especially if there's somebody around you that's doing worse, then you go, well, I'm not that bad. And then
Ain't that the truth? You hate that the truth, man.
I can name a dozen people off the top of my head. I know that is their modus operandi. I'm not as bad as that guy.
I hung around with some grimy people so that I could go, at least I'm not doing that.
Of course.
Made me feel better about myself.
I'm not going to jail all the time, but is. So,
yeah, they're going to prison.
Yeah, they're going to prison for a while. I'll probably lay low on that thing, but I'll find some other people to organize around myself that are still getting into some stuff because I like to get into stuff.
Yeah, I'm doing drugs, but I'm not injecting anything, so...
I'm not that bad.
I'm not that bad.
I definitely thought that.
Golly, ain't that the way it goes, man?
See, guys, this is the reason for Proverbs, is there's just some interesting dialogue. It creates dialogue between two Christian buddies about, hey, what'd you get from this? Hey, what'd you get? You can see Andy and I as two great friends drinking from the same trough of Christ, still find ourselves finding different patterns in just a single sentence. That's the value of these Proverbs. We really hope you guys enjoy them. Join us on the bigger episode here this week. We're doing the third part of our series, The Fall. It's an excellent one. It wraps it up here with Christ and his 40 days in the desert in this battle against the temptation of Satan. So join us there. Thanks again.